They're your biggest beauty bugbear and they lead to acne. So why are your pores clogging up and what can you do about it? We're going to get into that in today's video. Hi, I'm Dr. Sam, helping you get closer to bright, clear skin, just like I've done for thousands of patients at my Harley Street clinic. Now, make sure you stay right to the end of today's video because I'm sharing lots of tips and tricks that only my patients hear, so you'll want to stay right to the end. That was a cat. Now, I rarely meet a patient who doesn't find their pores a little bit objectionable. They're more prominent than they would like. And I think to understand how to make pores look their smallest, we use the term shrinking pores, but to be honest, pores the size that you get given, what you can do is make them look less obvious with the right skincare habits. Now, if we think about the pore itself, it's basically the opening of a tube which leads down into the skin to a structure called the sebaceous gland. And basically that tube carries oil to the surface of the skin and it switches on around puberty. And poof, that's when pores appear because the transit of oil and the accumulation of dead skin cells at the opening of that pore on the surface of the skin lead to them becoming conspicuous and visible. What happens next, as we see in up to 85% of teens, is that combination of sticky dead skin cells and copious amounts of oil leads to clogging in the T-zone and potentially to breakouts. So clogged end skin cells, lots of oil, and that blocks off the gland, allowing the acne triggering bacteria to have a party in the gland, and that's what causes blemishes. So keeping pores clear is a really fundamental thing for skin health. It's not just about making our skin look bright, smooth, and relatively imperfection free. It's also about worse things happening downstream, so blemishes and breakouts. Now, one thing to mention, sebaceous filaments. There's so much chat around these and ways to get rid of them. I think of sebaceous filaments as being a normal part of the pore architecture in combination to oily skin in particular, because where there is oil, you will have to some extent a little bit of cellular debris, and that is what you're seeing. You're not seeing a full-on blockage. The pore hasn't been completely filled up, but there is still some action down there, and that's what we see when we talk about sebaceous filaments. Now, this is not pathology. As I said in last week's video, this is not something you see described in dermatology textbooks. However, I would say that from my experience and from patients reporting back, the techniques that we have to improve the appearance of clogged pores, whether it's blackheads or whiteheads or closed comedones, will tend to improve the appearance of sebaceous filaments. So let's go through my 6-step strategy for helping improve the appearance of your pores, shrinking them as much as is humanly possible with a structure that's essentially a fixed shaped tube. So first thing to do is to avoid making matters worse with your skincare habits. Now, you wouldn't believe how many people I see where a significant part of their breakouts and blackhead action is due to using the wrong skincare products. And when I say wrong, obviously that's a highly subjective term, but it's wrong for their skin type. They are prone to clogging up already, and their skincare choices are pushing them over the edge. This is where I get my red pen out and I start, slashing away at the routine and putting together something that's much friendlier to the pores and to somebody who's prone to forming comedones. Common products which wave the red flag, things like facial oils, facial balms, and long wear foundations. Those are the things that I tend to remove from a patient's routine with their understanding because they just tend to cause trouble, particularly when used together. And it's commonly the long wear foundation that then leads to the need for balms and oils. Now, the easiest thing to start building a routine around may well be salicylic acid, and I talked about this in last week's video in more depth. However, in principle, it's an oil-soluble chemical exfoliant that's going to help to penetrate into the pore so it can get through that natural oily environment to exfoliate dead skin cells and to improve the appearance of your pores, and that will make them look smaller. If you think about a tube, the more stuff it has in it, the more conspicuous it is. So when they're nice and clean and clear, they appear less noticeable. They can also help remove comedones, and if you're acne prone, that can help with that too. And if it's just a few little, black dots that you're concerned about, that might well be sufficient, and you can use a BHA up to twice a day. Now, the next thing I might add for someone who's pore focused is azelaic acid. It's one of my favorite ingredients, guys, but in particular, when it comes to pore focus, it really, really helps with congestion and clarity, helping unclog those pores and preventing further clogging from happening. It also has many other benefits, including improved pigmentation, it calms down redness, and it's a general texture improver. So an ingredient where you really have to think, why wouldn't I involve it in my routine? And I think it really does make a big difference to the way your pores look. So that's your morning routine sorted out. What about your nighttime? Well, of course, a retinoid is going to be helpful. I mean, when isn't a retinoid helpful in my book? But in particular, it helps normalize the way those sticky skin cells behave. So it stops them from forming up clogs, prevents them from basically making your pores look congested. And because it refines texture and it prevents further clogging from happening, it can make a really big difference to the way your pores look. So again, I ask you, if you haven't got one in your routine, why haven't you? The final ingredient I want you to think about adding in, and it may be that you just think about adding in a combination of some of these ingredients, not necessarily all of them, although I have to say I do use them all together on a regular basis. But niacinamide, or vitamin B3, is pretty wonderful when it comes to helping improve the appearance of your pores. And again, it's believed to have a sort of normalizing effect on the skin cells. And in some individuals, there's even a thought that it reduces oil production. Although I have to say that in general, topicals, because of where the oil gland sits, I don't think make a massive difference to skin oiliness, but it's there, it's described. But in terms of keeping the cells sort of less sticky, making them less prone to clogging up your pores, niacinamide is a great ingredient to include, with an added bonus of being very much a barrier balancer. It increases ceramide production, so it's great for those with sensitive skin, and it can be a really good ingredient to actually pre-treat the skin with before introducing slightly more irritating actives like retinoids, getting your skin ready for adding in something that's a bit more active. So yeah, it's a real winner in my book. Step number 6 is perhaps the most important. It is to tell you to throw away your magnifying mirror, because at the end of the day, the pore game is as much a psychological one as it is a physical one. Yes, we can do things to improve the appearance of our pores, to make them look smaller than they are, but if you're not spending hours and hours peering at them, they really won't be as big a problem, because nobody else is noticing your pores as much as you are. So there you have it, an easy to follow 6-step routine to making the most or the least of your pores, depending on how you look at it. So a variety of things there that can be combined together for great results. And do make sure that the products you're using to support the use of actives are non-clogging or non-comedogenic to really support the whole program. There's really no point on the one hand in using great actives if on the other hand you're using a very trend-led beauty-based routine, which is actually causing some of your issues. So please give it a go, see how that works out for you. And again, do watch last week's video on salicylic acid if you really want to get to grips with the ingredients that can make the most of your pores. I'll see you guys again very soon. Bye for now.